Hey y'all, my name is Ann Wyatt. I started my career in workforce development with the state of Kentucky in 2010. That experience ignited a deep passion for manufacturing within me. I started this show hoping to raise more awareness around the bright outlook manufacturing careers have. Join me as I sit down with some of the manufacturing industry's most successful changemakers and learn how they're partnering people with technology. It's time to give people more meaningful work. This is Workforce 4.0. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Workforce 4.0. I'm so excited to have Jeff Kondel with Roots Education Company on with me today. He is the founder and executive director. He's super passionate about bringing educational solutions for educational providers in the manufacturing, industrial automation, and robotics space. And I met Jeff here this year at Automate in Chicago. Such a great experience checking out his booth and learning more about what Roots Education is up to. But Jeff, hi, how are you?
I'm great. And how are you?
Great. Thank you so much for joining the show today.
Yeah, I wish I had a nice, I wouldn't say girl boss, but I like your sign back there. I wish I had something behind me.
Well, thank you. This is actually not custom. This is just a home goods special. But the neon signs, they're in right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, do you want to give us a brief introduction of yourself? I tried to touch a little bit more on what Roots Education does, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah, sure. Let's see, I graduated from a tech school back in early 2000s and worked for a large company called ABB and traveled the world installing robots, South Africa to Mexico to Canada, and spent time in Norway. And it really found out quickly that when you go to school for robotics, it's like saying I'm going to school for engineering. What will you engineer? And with robotics, it just opens the path. It opens your world up to many different industries and aspects. So I got to really learn a lot about myself and cultures and people, traveling all over the place. Moved to Canada for a few years as I became their Magna's robotic specialist, 9 divisions across the continent. And I guess I've been training people my whole life in robotics. I just didn't really know it. And when we moved to Florida, I was asked to help out a local school. And when I went in and I was going through their process or kind of lack of process, I was really questioning why they were going to buy some of the equipment that they didn't understand what it could do and the outcomes. And I just thought to myself, like, if somebody ever sold me, or if I ever sold somebody equipment in industry and they didn't know what they were getting to, it'd probably be the last project you were ever going to get. And it just bothered me that education was more excited just to get new things versus the right things. So I challenged them. I challenged the school and the administration on what they would do and what they were trying to serve, for the local community. And they challenged me back about, like, okay, what would you do if you were king for the day? And so an idea was born, and that idea never really existed from like a business standpoint. So we came up with an idea, like, what if the students built their own robotic training center and had to work with the team to deliver a product at the end, but just smaller scale to fit, and they loved it. And they asked me how much it would cost. I said, I have no idea. Never priced one out. So I'm like, give me some time. So I was doing some research and I heard about this company called Universal Robots. I've never used them before. And I said, all right. I flew to Dallas. I signed up for the training, flew to Dallas, met Israel there as an instructor. This is interesting, this robot. And I'm big about vetting. I don't commit to anything unless I know it's going to work. But I flew to Michigan and I took another training course and I came back to that school. I said, I got an idea and I put together there with the cost. And 3 months later, I woke up as an email from the procurement department with a purchase order. So I bought everything. I built a Google site and I said, here's how we're going to build a robotic training center from the ground up. And then every 6 months, they tear it down so the next students can build it up from the ground up. And so for the past 6 years, this has consumed my life. Now, you can imagine like that was just one unit out of philanthropy. And then I'm still got my engineering job where I'm traveling around the country helping manufacturers, improve their operations and consider automation or help build a facility from the ground up. And another school hears about it and they're like, well, we want one. So I'm like, okay. In between my travels and I'll help. And then an administrator at like the deputy superintendent was like, can you do this in every middle school and high school? I'm like, I don't think so. This is industrial grade robotics. So that has now and pushed where it's elementary to university for roots. We won't create engineers, but we will get you on a pathway if you wanted to be that. But you will be employable at a super powered technician ready to take on the world. When I worked for ABB, I felt after 2 years, I was unstoppable. Like I could solve any problem out there. It didn't matter. Call me up. I'm bringing parts on site with me because I think I already know the problem. With these programs that Roots is launching, might have accelerated that 2 year learning curve for me. It might be under a year. So that's a year's worth of cost that a company pays for called OJT. We can
Yep.
solve that. So these young men and women are going to experience a lot of opportunities in robotics that, like I have, but one of our largest customers in Orlando has 25 robots. I had one in 20 students this year. They have 25 robots and 15 students every 13 weeks.
Wow.
And they're on the verge of buying another 18 more. It'll probably be the largest robotic training center in the country, and it's like, boy, times have changed. So that's Roots now, just consumed and obsessed with trying to help make sure every student has access to advanced automation and robotics.
That's awesome. I love how you just came up with this idea of like, okay, well, let's let the students build it. And you're right. I think, today's workforce, we talk a lot about, okay, like critical thinking skills, collaboration skills, how to see businesses as a whole image and how to drive like an ownership mentality in these are things that I think are fundamentally lacking in education, and by doing this and giving them a project at the scale, I can imagine they have got to leave this program feeling so empowered. And that's got to
Yeah.
be so important for them.
Yeah.
But I love that you started it and you were like, yeah, let's do this and just see how it goes. And now everyone's calling you up like, I want that. I, I want
Yeah.
that. Ooh, I want that. That's awesome.
Most equipment, and it made sense at the time, that when you want an educational trainer, you're pushing the green button to make it go. But I believe it's too hard to measure competency for a technician by pressing a green button if they don't get
Mhm.
to pull that wire, put on the label, land it to positive or negative, check on. I mean, so here, if they don't do that, the machine won't get finished. So there's a lot to that puts accountability on the student to, go through this or ask for help or whatnot. So we have a fine balance of making a project that's doable within the time frame because they graduation goes, it doesn't change. So we have to make sure the project can be completed in time. But I think just because of 20 years of installing robots, it's made it easy for me to be like, of course you can do this. This is a no-brainer. But
Sure.
for somebody fresh out of high school, be like,
Yeah.
I don't even know why there's a blue wire with a white stripe. Like, what is that? I have no idea what that means. Like, so I've really had to like figure out how I can tone myself down, and we've hired some great people. I mean, to be honest, I'll be absolutely honest, I'm only here on this call because of the people around me. We have people that are doing LMS and tell me that, Jeff, your paragraph that you just wrote, nobody likes that. It's like, I'm like, it's beautiful. It tells everything about Industry 4.0. And they're like, no 10-year-old's going to care about that. I'm like, fine. Like I don't know how to do that part well. I don't know how to make it fun and engaging and not like a technical white paper. So great people around me to make that. But I love automation and robotics, and I'm actually going to go to Odense here pretty soon, next month, to Denmark, and visit Universal Robots, who has some big plans to help me achieve my goals and better products in elementary up to university.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that you are focusing on elementary schools as well. That's a huge thing for me right now. I have one, he just finished first grade. He's going into second. And he won the math award. Sorry, very proud here. He won the math award in his class. But that story about, Industry 4.0 and like the white paper and all of that, and then coming back and saying, like no 8-year-old's gonna care. Listen, I live that every day because I am that way. I'm like, oh, Phoenix, look at how this connects to that. And he's like, okay, but the internet, where does it work? Making it relatable to them. So don't feel bad, because
No, I
that's
don't.
also my reality. I get
Well,
that
you
a lot
saw
as a
you
parent.
saw my daughter at Automate. I was so proud of her she's engaging hundreds of adults, showing them how to do that. I was like, whew. She could have easily shut down and be like, Dad, this is not for me. But she pulled it off when I needed her the
She
most.
rocked that.
She was excited about it. I'm surprised. She's an introvert like me,
Yeah, no, she rocked that. She did an amazing job. That was really fun and really cool to see her engaged in that activity. That was awesome.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
just on a short. I don't like to talk about myself too much, but our customers, so much goes to them. I don't sit around with engineers around a room thinking of things to make. We say, here's what our customers are asking for. We try to find a way to make it for them. So it's been keeping us real busy past few years. We're thankful.
Awesome. Well, perfect. Well, I appreciate you taking time to be on Workforce 4.0 today. I guess we are ready to kick off this conversation with our inaugural question. It's just tradition at this point. We talked a little bit more about this before we started recording here today, but music is life, right? I mean, that's just something that I think we both resonate with. And I have to know what your favorite song or karaoke song is.
I told you that I wear a song out when I find
Yeah.
one that I like, and karaoke, I only choose not to do karaoke for the other people. I don't want to make their ears bleed, but if I had to sing one, Chris Stapleton has some good music, and Millionaire. I don't know. It just feels like there's much more than just, money, but there's a lot of other good things out there. So feels like that's kind of a little bit about roots. We're in it for the outcome, not the income.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's such an appropriate song for what you all are doing as well. Chris Stapleton's got some good jams. I'm not a huge country fan, but he's got some good I know. I know, right? Don't tell
Edit
anybody,
that.
but I don't drink bourbon either.
Okay, you're gonna
As
edit
like
this, right? Because
that's a cardinal sin,
you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose followers.
right? What kind of Kentucky girl are you? I'm
Yeah, they might
sorry.
question it.
I know
Hey,
it.
you gotta be.
I know
It's
it.
it is what it is.
It is what it is. I mean, I'm authentic. There we
You're
go.
genuine.
That's
Yeah, that's for
yeah.
sure.
So I'm gonna bring that back around.
Yeah, just use that as the excuse.
Exactly. I love music, and kind of transitioning into our next question here. More about yourself and more about your own career journey and life experience. But could you share a particularly impactful experience or project that has significantly influenced your approach to workforce development and continued education? And then, like, how would you say that has shaped your perspective on the industry?
Well, a lot of our products are very similar in where they're focused on manufacturing. But this one, probably you wouldn't even expect me to answer it this way. Because of 20 years of experience doing robotics, it feels like a no-brainer just to teach somebody how to install a system or lay out a system or design it, work as a team and make it run smoothly. Those are typically with the advanced manufacturing classes or in like a STEM. But we call it powered by Manatee because Manatee school systems out here, where it's health science related and it's robotics. So they said, could you do the game of operation? And you probably play that game where it's a box, and you
Yeah.
got a little
Love that
tweezers
game.
and well, we're doing that with a robot. And when that surgeon has to work remotely, not in the hospital, not with the patient, they have to communicate with the head nurse, a robot tech in the hospital, and a scrub tech. And they have to have video streaming, they have to have calibration, they have to have a remote type of device. I'm not sure if you used it at Automate called Mimic. They have to work collectively, and they're on a timer. They have to put 6 organs inside of a simulator body, which is a real training system that nurses use, pilots use, firefighters use, and it's called Baby Luna from CAE Healthcare. So they have to prepare the patient for an operation. They have to plug in the IV. They have to make sure the baby's weighed in, all vitals are checked, and then they start the game of operation. But the robot tech has to create a safe environment. So before they give the surgeon remote access to a robot, which has people around a robot, right? It's not typically the
Yeah.
safest thing to do.
Yeah.
So we believe this is the surgeon of the future where they're going to have that type of assistance. So, it may be way in the future, but the idea of somebody doing, robotic surgery is happening now. But the idea of somebody doing remote surgery outside of a console is not too far away, in our opinion. So the robot tech, once everything's ready, basically says, okay, I'm giving remote access to Dr. C, and where they go. And once they do place all those organs, baby Luna will cry and her arms will move. And they go through basically a whole pre-op surgical operation and a post-op. But these are future health science professionals that are starting to learn what it's like Industry 4.0, but on the
Yeah.
medical side. So
Yeah.
it's an untapped market. Why should only manufacturing type students use robotics? We think it's just there's so much more to automation and what we're doing in manufacturing that is going to move over into other projects. So that's one of the favorite things that we've seen. And I love doing things that help people. So this one is huge for me. And it's more like a personal project, but we've got one going into Wakulla High School here soon. And this object that one day here soon we'll post pictures of, it looks like something you'll see in some medical office, or in a hospital someday. It's
That's
beautiful.
cool. I was just thinking, robotics are quickly becoming a big part of all kinds of other industries. And it'll be interesting how we kind of blend all of that with robotics and like healthcare, robotics and agriculture, food service robots.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
already a thing. There's
Mm-hmm.
a restaurant right up the road. It's called Mangia's, and they have
Yeah.
Tito, and he is the robot waiter. He's a little AMR. And Phoenix, my kiddo, loves him. He's always asking, "Can we go visit Tito?" So, I
Really?
mean, yeah. Yeah, he's
That's
like, "Can
great.
we go visit Tito for dinner?" And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, sure." I mean, it's right up the road. But I mean, it's already here to some degree. And I guess my next question is a follow-up question is, how should we prepare nursing students to be working with robots. I think in our industry, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I mean, we've kind of come to this acceptance place where, yeah, we're going to be working with robots. But I don't think if you sat down with a nurse today and said, or like a nursing student and said, hey, you're probably going to be working with robots in your future career, that would register. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, we are, influenced by or say powered by Manatee County. We chose the game of operation, chose it to be a game. Like we know
Yeah.
life saving is not nothing jokingly about it, but it's like me writing that technical paragraph on a white paper.
Right.
No 14-year-old nursing student is going to want to read that. It's boring as all get out. But by putting this with baby Luna, it's a cute little baby simulator, and then making it so they're not, jogging a robot with a teach pendant, and they're using this wand like dexterity training. We think
That
the
is what I
combination,
used.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
combination of them being being realistic, as well as like, hey, I get to play with this simulator. It's just a portion of their overall training, the robotics. They still have to do so much more, where typically the advanced manufacturing student, I mean, they're almost always using some type of automation. The health science professional is just barely using it. It's just a very small portion of it. But one thing we learned, and I'm not sure how familiar you are, Ann, with like state frameworks, but in Florida, they have job
Sure.
codes. All right.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
we believe we created, or at least what's what Manatee County says, we created a job code with this. There's not currently a position called robot tech in a hospital, one that would create a
Right.
safe place, manage that automation, because the surgeon is somewhere else. Maybe the surgeon's the one trained in, the Da Vinci system or the robotic, and they're there right there at the console. This one, he or she could be in the Bahamas on vacation and has their medical kit that's allowed to remote in. So we have to have somebody there that is maybe the chief nurse or the robot, some type of robot nurse. We we believe we created a job code, and when you do that, now
We'd
you
have
get the
to.
state to recognize that now the frameworks are going to have to change. So it is
Exactly.
like flipping the script.
So there's no industry code. Yeah. I mean, there's no industry code for, and then on a national level, it's the NAICS code.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah.
So there's no industry code that would relate to, we have that now in manufacturing, but in nursing and health sciences is a different industry sector.
Yep.
And I don't think a lot of people, well, this is probably again like the white paper 8-year-old scenario, but a lot of people don't realize that all of these industries are different sectors and they're all treated very differently and they're all siloed and categorized differently than just, like, oh, like we made up a job title. You can creatively do that, but you still have to tie it back for your employment records and for everything else that is government related back to an NAICS code. And they're all structured by industry sector. So manufacturing is its own industry sector, and then healthcare is its own industry sector. And then logistics and supply chain is technically its own industry sector. Tech is its own industry sector. So you have all of these
Mhm.
industries. And so, that was kind of my main question. And my point was like, how do we remove those silos? Because now we're moving laterally across industry sectors. And that's going to
Yeah,
be an interesting change in the way that we work.
yeah, and you know more about it than I do, obviously. So the there's a book that the health science students will get, Lincoln Middle School, where we put our first one, and it has like one paragraph, in the future you'll use robotics.
Hmm.
That's it. So what if you went to the advanced manufacturing class at Valencia and you just messed with 25 robots? and you've always had a passion for healthcare, like how do you know you can jump into that other silo? Be like, hey,
Exactly.
I could do that. I didn't no idea because Valencia College has 25 robots in that one program. In their health science program, they have zero. So nobody would know that I could cross sectors or jump silos. So I think it's going to take the girl boss to help promote that. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's a small world. Spread
It's
things like this will help spread that message.
It's something for us to think about for sure, going forward. And I'm a big planner, so I would rather be proactive than reactive and then us get there and be like, "Oh yeah, we've got all these robots in our hospitals and we're not really sure what to do with the people."
Yeah.
We're not doing that, right? So we need to incorporate the people into a way that they are comfortable working with their
Yeah,
robot coworkers just like we would for manufacturing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And speaking of the people, kind of how do you see the collaboration between hiring managers, educational providers, and human resource managers driving innovation and workforce development? And what role do you believe you play in fostering such a collaboration?
As a business owner myself, trying to hire a lot of people right now, um, I'm always wondering what things could I automate? What do I need people for? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like the technical HR person myself, because I can do that. But I do know that when I go into these manufacturers and, they're looking at head count, trying to stabilize head count, they call on roots, usually roots engineering. And they're like, what can we do to stabilize head count and still get growth? And, but until, sometimes you look at these positions and you're like, why did you hire for that position to begin with?
Right.
That never should have been an actual position. You should have automated that almost immediately, or
Yeah.
what was your plan there? And I do think there's a gap between, like sometimes the the resource side, like which resource is the best resource on this, a human resource
Mhm.
or a robotic resource? And because the human resource may be very hard to find, may not want to stick around, may not give you the return on investment. And I've bought a lot of equipment, so I know that before you invest in automation, there's a lot of you know testing. You want to make sure it is a repetitive process, or you can't afford it. But there are some. I do see companies not having that on like this track of, okay, we'll start with putting somebody in there and test that out, but by this date, this milestone, we have to convert that into a robotic process. It just They don't do that, and it just keeps on going,
Mm.
and wages go up, and that person stays there, and it's just a dull job, maybe, or
Yep.
maybe a dangerous job. But most of these dull jobs are where they cannot fill the positions. And I think if there's a better connection between those departments, the recruiting side of the business or the HR might have better success rate at hiring the right people for the right jobs and stabilizing headcount. Because a lot of people feel like robots take jobs. If this was just part of the process to begin with, not like, oh, they got a robot, so I'm out. It should have been always part of the plan. Like, you're going to help make sure like this company is successful on a short term. Let's do what we got to do, figure this out, and then we're going to move you into the next position so we can get that dull job replaced with a robot. So
Exactly. It's about career growth and career development. And, no one wants to come in working a material handling job or a machine operator job and stay there for the longevity of their career. And these are the roles that we have the most opening the positions for in the industry. There's so many of these positions that are unfilled, and does it make sense to have humans working in those capacities when we're such creative and great beings, right? We could be doing so many other things than just doing the same thing every 10, 15 minutes every day, right?
Yeah. I would say, we look at like Industry 3.0 when it went from, all human operations to robotics, industrial robotics. And so technology changed to solve a problem. And I think this past 5, 10 years, technology changed again, where collaborative robots is now will make that more possible. But business, that's why you need a good leader at the top to make sure that departments like this adapt and grow with it. That it's not just the engineering team or the operations team, the recruiting and the resource team understands the advancement in technology and excuse me, and they're evolving.
Yeah, no, I love that. How do you, for those listening in on the show today, how do you suggest that they go about taking steps to identify roles that maybe are better done by robots and automation and maybe not as good fit for people?
Yeah. So ultimately, consumers don't pay for waste. Somebody wants AirPods. They don't care how you make it necessarily. They don't care how many operations are in there that are robotically operated or done
We
by
just want
humans.
our
Yeah,
AirPods.
just want it, and
Yeah.
you're going to pay $299 or whatever the price is now. You're as an operations team, you have to eliminate or reduce waste and eliminate waste out of the value stream. Then prices could come down for the consumers or margins go up. So if a job where people are not showing up to produce that product, the product's getting delayed or it's incurring additional costs. So when we do evaluations, we go into manufacturers, we look for waste in the value stream. We question why people are maybe moving from an assembly station, or why is there only one shared component that multiple people have to use, or why this high or low yield area isn't considered to be automated because they put in 20 rivets, and if they get one wrong they got to scrap the whole thing. So we just looked for waste. We recently did a project where they've been doing this for years, that they have to cut tubing to go inside of this mechanism, like 2,000 inches and greater. So a lot of tubing, and each piece is a different size, a different color, different material. And they have to go read their instructions, and they have to go to the tubing center, and they pull out their tube and they cut it. Sometimes they use scissors.
Yeah.
Sometimes they use tube cutters. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
pliers.
I bet their
And
documentation is fun.
the documentation's great. It's
Really?
the fact is not controlled. People can read it, but they can do what they want.
Yeah.
It's hard to manage, 60 employees with a few supervisors, and to do so. But great company, they do awesome work. But every time they use a pair of pliers, probably they have a bad cut on their tube and potential leak in the field. So they would go to the tube cutter, and then they would have to go to the printer, and they would have to type in what they're to print, and then they have to wait for the print. Many times the print wouldn't work. They have to call IT. IT would have to come down and fix the printer. We're like, what? Like, why? We ended up looking at this and presented to their management that if they continue to do this, they'll lose 1.5 million in the next 5 years just in labor. And they asked us to come in there to state, they want 20% growth year over year without increasing headcount. So they have this thing called the hurdle rate. In anything greater than 15%, the president said it's probably worth investing in versus leaving it in the bank. So with this evaluation, their finance department came back and came to 113%. She couldn't sign off on that thing fast enough. So we end up putting in a UR10 that will pull the tube, measure the tube because the robot knows exactly its distances, right?
Nice. Yeah.
Cuts the tube,
The
puts the
same way
tube
every time.
into puts the tube into a laser, and it laser engraves the tube, comes over, puts it in a little tote. So it just runs batches and batches depending on which order you want all day long. And it didn't get rid of a single job. It
And
just
I bet those
improved.
employees were like, I mean, I guarantee everybody on that floor was like, hallelujah. I
Yeah,
mean, we don't
it's a
we don't have
Kanban
to
system.
do this anymore, and
Yeah,
we don't have to call IT, and we're not, we can do other things than just
it's a
babysit a
Kanban system.
machine.
It
Yeah,
just became a part, like just a kit that just shows up at there. And
that's
what we look
awesome.
at is this is just another approved process. It's validated now. So you could, if something happened to the robot and went down, you still got your old way, didn't replace it. So operations don't shut down. We look at like this is why collaborative robots and that type of methodology can greatly help small to medium size, because if it was a huge robot in a cage and this was the only way to get tubes cut and measured and it went down,
Yeah,
like that, we don't like to hinder an operation that way.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
that's
our
true.
technique, Roots. Yeah, you can call me and we can give you our advice, but there's a lot of great companies that go in and, look for waste in the value stream.
I love that. That's a really awesome story. I do. I feel like, did you talk to their employees? Were they happy? Were they
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, this is so nice?
Yeah, I talk to them quite a bit. Yeah, I'm my worst critic, so I always want to be like, "You sure you got what you wanted?" And yeah, we keep in constant contact. They're a local company to me, so I sit on the board of SAMA. It's a manufacturers, excuse me, association, and so does their director. So I see Matt all the time.
Awesome. Good. Okay. Yeah, that's super inspiring. I love to hear that story. It's a great share of how robots are not taking our jobs, right? They're just improving the way that we work. They're giving us, like I like to say on the show, more meaningful work instead of just
Hmm.
doing the same boring things every day. But I think we have time for one more question here today, Jeff, if you have some time for that
Sure.
still. Awesome. This is more of a personal question, and it's kind of more of a reflective, introspective question. But I always like to learn more about my guests here on the show as people. And I have to know, for everyone listening that's maybe earlier on in their career in the audience, what advice would you give to professionals looking to excel in the field of workforce development with continued education, based on your own experiences and insights gained throughout your own career?
So I'm gonna ask you to say that one more time, but the part that I'd probably throw, you're saying, what would I give advice to professionals or those
Yes.
looking to be
So
professionals?
young professionals, we'll say young professionals, entry level professionals. What
Yeah.
career advice would you bestow to them to be
Now,
successful as a founder
because
or in workforce development or even in robotics or the industry at large?
yeah, first, soak it up. Don't be afraid to jump in and try anything. When if you have the tools in front of you, spend all the time on them as you can. The part I say about as an entrepreneur, I guess I'm a better entrepreneur because I failed a lot, but on somebody else's dime, I guess. I've traveled the world, installed a lot of robots, did things. Not everything went well or was easy or planned for. That's made me a much better person saying, oh boy, if this was my company, I would not do it that way. Or, you can't waste money that way. So the field of robotics or in workforce development, it's everybody's going to have their own pathway, but time is precious, and I learn more every time I get exposed to something like this, or I speak to people in these different industries, and that's where I grow the most. Technically, it's hard to say, a piece of equipment's always going to stay the same and you're going to get masterful at it. So you have to embrace change. You have to get out there and you have to come on Ann Wyatt's podcast so you can stay aware of this stuff. But it's evolving quick. Maybe lazy is the wrong word, but if you're not willing to put in the effort, somebody else will, and they will outpace you quick. At Roots, we like what we're doing, but we're just scratching the surface. And I refuse to take my pedal off or my foot off the gas pedal. We may not make a lot of change to a lot of products that customers are seeming to like, but we will constantly invest in making new products to make sure that future workforce, whether it be those in transportation or distribution, are the next future technicians, have the support that they need and the tools and training they need. So there's only so much time in the day. That's the only constant to me in life is time. So you spend, if you love this stuff, I just spend as much time as I can doing it, and I'll get pretty good at it.
I feel like as an entrepreneur, time is your most valuable resource. It's like you don't even think about money. People I think assume you start a business and it's like all about the money aspect of it, but really it's about, to me anyway, it's about time. And I just have this drive of like I have so many things that I want to accomplish. I kind of get that same from your answer there. I kind of get that same vibe from you.
Yeah, I mean, time is money too. I still mow my own yard because it's my ability to like decompress, without thinking of anything. But for the most part, I constantly have to juggle, what time I can spend and where I can spend it, because it's potentially opportunity loss. And that's why I say I'm always going to have my foot on the gas pedal, because there's so many students or young professionals that come to us and want to, like, what should I do when I graduate? Or, what's your story? It's so moving in a way, like heartfelt, that it's like, I want to give these kids good advice, and tell them things that I wouldn't do again, and the things that I would do. And I want it to be genuine. So every project that we go to, every school and every community is a little different. We learn something new every time.
I love that so much. And I do appreciate your time here today, Jeff. It means a lot to me that you would come on and share your all story with our community here at Workforce 4.0. For everyone that is listening today in the audience and maybe they want to reach out to you, do you have a best method of communication or point of contact to share?
Yeah, I'm not big on social media, but LinkedIn I do like. So please feel to reach out through that as well. That's probably one of the best ways to do it. As you can see our page, there's an instant message on there as well. So feel free to follow. And I'm on that quite a bit. I love seeing all the new development and technology on there. It's pretty neat.
I feel like LinkedIn is just kind of like our little family. I mean, we're just all there. We're all kind of like, yeah. I mean, some of us, I think, like other social platforms, but it's like, you want to see more. We're just nerds at heart. Maybe that's what it is. But we're all like, I want to see all the robots and we want to know what everybody's into.
A living business card. All right. And keep up.
It is. Awesome. Well, perfect. Well, Jeff, I appreciate it so much. And you can definitely find Jeff, if you're listening today, on LinkedIn, as well as myself. And I'm sure a lot of you as well. So thank you so much, Jeff. We look forward to having you again on a future episode of Workforce 4.0.
My pleasure. Anytime.